Welcome to Reversing Hashimoto Show. I'm your show host, Dr. Anshul Gupta, the world expert in Hashimoto's disease. I help people reverse their thyroid conditions by making personalized functional medicine plans. You can work with me with any part of the country now by making virtual functional medicine appointments. To book an appointment, look at the show notes. In this show, I am going to get experts from all over the world who are going to share latest information that will help you to reclaim your life back from dreadful thyroid disease. So welcome here. And today we have lovely Dr. Robin Rose with us. Dr. Robin Rose is a board certified family physician with focus on functional medicine approach to kidney disease. She worked as a family physician for more than 25 years and now she specializes in chronic kidney disease. She has spent the last 8 years researching the neglected arena of early chronic kidney disease. She created the new field of renology, primary care kidney medicine, from the most pristine, preventive, integrative, functional, holistic perspective. She does peer to peer consults and coaching for patients, especially with chronic kidney disease. She also likes to teach this stuff and is now writing a book on holistic approach to kidney disease. Dr. Robin, welcome to our summit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. You know, you have such a nice background and it's so impressive. We don't find many people who actually now specialize in the functional medicine, kidney disease care, and then like also the thyroid care. So I would like to actually hear your story, how your journey began and how you got interested into this kidney disease.
Thank you. Well, as a aging family doctor, I finally came to a place where I realized it was time to live my life. My husband and I did a bit of traveling and ended up coming to Hawaii, where I live now. And I started having blood pressure spikes. I was like, this isn't a good thing. And long and short of it, I was diagnosed with a kidney tumor. A bit alarming, and had clarity. I want to remove this tumor, and had the surgery, had a nephrectomy. 3 weeks post-operatively, I came back to Hawaii, and I was a bit fragile. Really, nobody told me much. You'd think as a family physician, I would be kidney wise. I found out none of us are. And so 3 months into it, I found out I had a GFR that was at 30, which is at a point where it starts getting serious. And what I found was there was so little support for what do I do? What do I eat? How do I think about this? And what I got repeatedly was, don't worry about it. Don't worry. I was like, well, I am worried. I don't feel good. I'm losing weight. My brain isn't working well. It turned out my potassium was elevated, and I had a lot of things going on. And this is, in a exercising, diet attuned physician. So I essentially had to go to basics. What exactly does an elevated potassium mean in kidney disease? So, essentially very slowly, me and my medical library here ended up finding enormous amount of information. There's so much written. And what I found out is in the guidelines, nephrology, bless them for taking care of very sick people, really don't have the expertise for earlier kidney disease. In fact, their guidelines say, we don't want to see you until your GFR, which is the lab that we use, it's called glomerular filtration rate. And we know the kidney is a filter. And so that's a number that we use. It's kind of a made up number, but it's a guide. And at that point, I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense to me. And so over time, I've really been guided by patients whose issues were brought to me and physicians whose questions came to me. And slowly I came to realize early kidney disease is where to start. And in primary care, that's what we do. A specialist gets a referral, the person's already evolved usually in the course of their illness. But our job is really to take all comers and figure out what's going on. And because I think all of us are somewhat intimidated by kidney medicine. And unfortunately, I figured out a few things. Early on, there was nothing. And these doctors were, how can I say it, like devastated to see very sick people and you don't have anything to offer them. And so dialysis was discovered, and it basically led to dropping the ball with what to do earlier. Everything was dialysis is coming. When I tell people, I have chronic kidney disease, oh, are you on dialysis? No, there's years, decades for some people before that happens. And yet we offer very little. And so I've been impressed, blown away by the enormity of how extensive abnormal kidney is in affecting every other part of the body. And so, in talking about this with thyroid, I mean, it's a big player with thyroid, and yet mostly it's ignored. I mean, not one of the many docs I saw ever mentioned thyroid to me. I mentioned it to them. And so, it's very exciting to me to realize that we can address this and we can do it early. And I'm seeing people turn around and get better. And it really takes motivation from the patient. It's like, you got to go home and change your ways. And some of them seemed like they, to me, were healthy ways, but they were not kidney healthy.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I will agree that, like before meeting you, my thyroid patients, I was not so much focused on their kidney health either, because, we were not taught this way, and we never thought about kidney disease affecting the thyroid disorder. So I am really excited for a discussion today. I'm really excited to learn more from you. So let's delve right into it. So tell us more about this connection. Like, how does kidney and thyroid, connect each other?
But one thing to remember is kidney disease affects about 13+% of the population. That's a lot of people. Many of them don't know they have it until, like me. I mean, I was well advanced before I even was aware of it, though looking back at labs, I saw I had been, but it gets neglected. And so one thing to say is that we stage it. And stage 1, it's pretty minor. I don't even address that much. Stage 2, the GFR is between 60 and 90. That is ignored by classical conventional nephrology unless the person is peeing protein. Proteinuria is something that stage 2 collects. Stage 3, from a 30 to 60 GFR, is acknowledged as the beginning of kidney disease, and a lot is happening. Stage 4 and 5, way more severe and harder to turn around, though possible. One of the things to know is if you have early kidney disease, start learning about the diet. Start learning about your sleep, your hydration, stress levels, exercise, toxins. And these are all important. And funny thing, they're kind of also important with thyroid and Hashimoto's. And so I've, in preparation for this, thank you, I put together some information. The two problems have symptoms that are similar, and so you see kidney patients with swelling in their face, tired, fatigued, anemic. These are all symptoms in common. Anemia is something that you see with thyroid disease and is very common in kidney, and so we know that what the thyroid does, in terms of energy metabolism, growth and development, the kidney needs. And yet when kidney starts to decline, the thyroid fails. you know, I mean, I make jokes about, you know, the kidney bone is connected to the thyroid bone, and there's there's very little attention put to it, though there's a lot written. You know, there's a lot that we know.
That's so though you brought about like very important points, first of all, staging the kidneys, because a lot of people, like same with thyroid, they're walking and talking, and, unless they do the proper labs to check, like their kidney function, they might not even know that they are developing early stages of kidney disease. And the good
Right.
part is that these are simple tests, right? They can go to any local doctor or their own doctor and just check their kidney function. And the
And you
GFR,
know,
as you mentioned.
mostly everybody who ever gets lab work done, there are kidney labs, you know, the basic lab work that, you know, you show up anywhere and you get, you know, the CBC and the Chem panel and the urinalysis. Big bonus. You can figure out kidney with those, just those few tests.
Exactly. So easy to figure out. So that way, obviously, if your doctor doesn't talk about it, maybe you can look at your GFR, and then maybe see if you're falling into a stage one or a stage two. Because, I think we are going to just talk about it, like why early diagnosis and early treatment is so important. That can safeguard your thyroid and also safeguard your kidney. So that will be
Yeah.
very important. But before that, we go into that, the symptoms, right? So it's so interesting that this all the symptoms that you mentioned are, coinciding with thyroid and the kidney disease. Both have very similar symptoms.
Sure.
Very
And there's
difficult to
more. I
get in.
mean, constipation, lipids, you know, brain dysfunction, cardio issues are common in both
Wow,
of them.
yeah, that is amazing. That is amazing. So that is one more reason to actually pay attention to these labs, to make sure that it's not just the thyroid, it's also your kidney, which might be causing these symptoms. So that is an amazing thing that, I think we all need to pay attention to.
Yes. And so, you know, mostly the concern is with hypothyroid. I mean, there are cases with hyper, but and mostly with Hashimoto's, it is hypo. And so it's interesting because, you know, with hypothyroid, protein synthesis is affected.
Mhm.
And then if there's proteinuria, there's loss in the urine of the hormone itself. And so, you know, right there, there's enough of a lack that the symptoms start arising. And like you say, these are patients walking around fine. I'm tired a little, but I'm fine. And that's the time. That is the time. You know, a little bit of fatigue is a portal to fixing up a lot of stuff. And you know, there's an array. There's so many things you can address. But with thyroid, it's a bingo for so many people.
Oh, absolutely. So tell us, why is it important to do this early diagnosis, like versus like, waiting till the end, which the conventional doctors generally want to wait. I'll come back, every 1 year or every 6 months and we'll repeat the labs. And once you're into stage four, then we'll do something about it. So what people can do, or like, why is it important to first, like get diagnosis in early stages?
Right. So my own realization was this had to start somewhere. You know, it didn't just all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was broken. Um, and so that's the subtlety that I'm looking for. There's an intuition to it because really the conventional line is there are no symptoms in early kidney disease. I kind of disagree. I think they're subtle. And if you really drill down and take a good history, you'll find out, yeah, there's symptoms, but maybe they're vague. And so, you know, you can offset that. I mean, I spent part of today reading about mitochondrial dysfunction with kidney disease and some wonderful peptide remedies for it. And so what I realized was early on, mitochondria are starting to decline. Early on, endothelial dysfunction, the blood vessels are damaged. A kidney is a clump of blood vessels. And so we can do stuff about this. You know, most of us have bad habits. And so, the array of I call them kidney treats, you can change your diet. You have to learn a lot. And it's individual. What works for me in my diet with kidney may not work for you. It's all based on your individual labs. There's so many things that get out of whack. It's like being a pilot, you have to just keep fine tuning, and it keeps changing. So over time, we're constantly looking. But I've seen miraculous turnarounds, the kind of case where, oh, you never had that in the first place. Because the effort to, get rid of glyphosate in your diet, that causes leaky gut and that makes kidney worse. The toxins in your food, under your kitchen sink, in your bathroom, all these things, we can adjust, we can adapt, and let's adapt well. The first thing to know is kidney in Chinese medicine is fear. So the mind-body thing is start paying attention to reactivity, and discernment. I call kidney a discerning organ because it's filtering all day long. It has to decide. Everything in the blood comes into the glomerulus, this clump of blood vessels, and then it has to decide and filter things. And then the tubules kind of decide what to keep and what to throw out. And that's life. We have to discern in that way. I call it the Raja Yoga of the body, to really understand what's good for me and what isn't. It is really a blessing to know that, and so with kidney, the ante's up. You better learn that, because I have seen so many people poo-poo all of, crazy Dr. Robbins' advice, and then I hear they're on dialysis quickly. And so early diagnosis means I needed time. I'm a health food nut. I was, like a health food eater from the 70s. It took me a long time to really get at what I needed to eat with this diet, and so we have a gentler entry. You don't have to panic. You go, okay, this is a long-term thing. Let's look at what can be changed. Gee, I don't drink enough fluids. Adapt. I need to exercise differently. I'm just in a conversation with a man who is really overdoing his exercise. That's too traumatic for kidney. That's unfortunate, but sorry, you don't want your kidneys to deteriorate, because it affects everything cardio. We call that cardiorenal, and many cardiac cases are neglected kidney cases. Kidney will make cardiac stuff 30 times worse, literally. And brain dysfunction, and gut dysfunction, and muscle dysfunction, and autoimmune issues. And so why not start early? Because we can just, really gently assist the adaptation and offer some tools.
That is awesome. Thank you for putting it so beautifully. That's what I can say. The way you kind of put it out is very important, and also in a very beautiful manner. So let's kind of delve into more things about things that we see in thyroid and kidney disease and why they're important. Especially, I'm more intrigued about this low T3 syndrome. Because
Yeah.
a lot of my patients, have low T3, and obviously we do things to get them better, but seems like there is a connection between the T3 and the kidney disease, and that's where we might have to work on kidney disease to
Yeah.
make it better. So,
And we know that T3 tends to be ignored
oh yeah, absolutely, yes.
conventionally. It's like, no, we don't use that. You don't need it. And so one of the things that's interesting is there's T4, and an enzyme comes and takes away one of them, and you have T3. That enzyme gets damaged with kidney disease to some extent. And there's things that happen, like the damage to the kidney means protein gets through, and people lose protein in their urine. That's serious. That's a bad thing. And there's things to do. That can happen in stage 2, often with diabetes, but not only. People can have microscopic hematuria, meaning they're losing blood through their pee. Not a good thing. And it's, I mean, I've had it and they're like, well, we don't know. The we don't know part isn't always comforting. So when there's, my dogs are going off, when there's protein in the urine, think kidney. Think thyroid. And so things happen, like when the thyroid is damaging kidney and vice versa, we see cardiac things change, peripheral resistance. So the blood vessels going out from the heart may not react properly. So you can end up having edema and high blood pressure. And, when that happens, there's less blood flow to the kidneys as well. And then you start seeing creatinine rise. And that's another one of the lab tests that we see routinely on, everybody that gets a panel has a creatinine. And one of the cool things that I found out early on was, as soon as you start seeing that creatinine rising, you already have 20% damage. That's alarming. In a GFR of 60, when we just start talking about now we have kidney disease, that's already 50% loss.
Oh my God.
That got my attention, and so there's, so when you have thyroid jumping in on this scuffle, it gets much worse. You can end up having things that you can't figure out. Why is there edema I can't fix? Why is the blood pressure? I can't get a handle on it. And of course, with Hashimoto's, you have the autoimmune thing. And that brings us to the microbiome in the gut, because one thing to know, you call it uremic toxemia. So when the kidney can't expel toxins, when you're not urinating out stuff that you need to get rid of, often it ends up in the gut. And the body's smart enough to know, maybe I can excrete this way. But that causes damage to the colon. And you can end up having leaky gut, meaning, that the colon cells let stuff through, it gets into the blood and causes inflammation. And we know that with Hashimoto's, that's a thing. And we also know that with kidney, dysbiosis makes kidney function worse. And so there's another, crossover between Hashimoto's and CKD. And we know a lot about how to take care of the gut, and get rid of that inflammatory bowel issue that leads to leaky gut and autoimmune problems. And so, not everybody with Hashimoto's is fully hypothyroid. And so sometimes we miss that. I've seen conversations with physicians saying, the thyroid function's normal, ignore it. And I never have. With any autoimmune stuff, again, revert to preventive thinking. Patients are motivated, they'll do it. Not everybody, but most patients, and I had wonderful, motivated people. Once they understood, and that means you take time and teach, then they ended up doing beautifully. And so, it's just not an uncommon thing. So with the T3 syndrome, we can't convert from T4 to T3. So if a physician is ordering thyroid labs and just getting a TSH and just getting a T4, this might be altogether missed. And so we have an atypical situation, and the rhythms of thyroid just get messed with. Kidney's insidious. It's like, people think, oh, it's just a filter. The consequence of bad filtering is full on everywhere. It affects, I've done a full body scan relating to kidney, and it's like any body part you want to know about, I can tell you. Deficient kidney will make it harder to get better with that. So, the issue with low T3 syndrome, it's easy. It's easy to fix. I mean, my own thyroid, I had been taking thyroid for years, and I just have had to adjust the T3 over time. We've watched it, and you can get it compounded. It costs more, but then, you get an accurate reading. I mean, you can get T4 and you can get T3 and take both of them together. Many physicians aren't familiar with how to do that.
Absolutely, yes. It's so common, like several clients of ours, they are taking T4, and then as soon as we say you might need a little bit of T3, and the physician have no idea what we're talking about,
Yeah.
and as you rightly pointed out, it's so easy now. Even if compounding is challenging, that you cannot afford it, T3 medicine is available by prescription, so which can be covered by your insurance. So that is obviously a good way to start off with. And then if you can afford a compounding, there is no choice, because compounding is much more better. You don't get the fillers, you're getting the right medicine, so that's always great. But you pointed an important point, is that a lot of people, when they come to see me, that for Hashimoto's, they, as you said, the thyroid function is still decent range, but their antibody levels are high. So now what we are talking about is that even when your thyroid numbers are normal, that damage to the kidney might be happening because those autoimmune processes still happening. So again, more of a reason to start working on reversing that underlying autoimmune process. So you not only safeguard your thyroid, but also safeguard your kidneys. Is that correct?
And we know that autoimmune diseases run in gangs.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you often see other problems arise because these little fiery antibodies irritate other things. And but especially with kidney, I mean, it's fascinating to really delve into this and realize how significant it is and how much we're missing it. And so I'd like to go into the idea of protein in the urine. Pretty much what I found is it's not just albumin. We think, oh, albuminuria, that's what it is, microalbumin with diabetics, but it's other proteins. It's our hormones and other necessary things. And so don't neglect proteinuria ever. There's dietary changes to make. There's, lower your salt. Thyroid, kidney and salt are not good friends. And and so they've often, there's been quite a few studies looking at this, where proteinuric kidney patients generally have higher TSH. That's the generalization. And then immune complexes, these antibody little, I call them little Pac-Men that run around in the body, will end up harming kidney structures. And
Wow. So I would like to repeat the statement for the folks, is that people with high, kidney dysfunction, it was shown that they have a higher TSH, right? So that means that people do have hypothyroid who have a kidney dysfunction. So very profound statement, because as you said, we just don't put two and two together. So the research from, according to you, does suggest that people who have a kidney disease have a higher chance of getting thyroid disease too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm cheating and looking at my notes as we're talking. And this one study looked at 159 people who had protein in their urine, and the majority of them had TSHs that were of concern. And so, as thyroid hormone gets peed out and it's not available, they're vicious cycles. And so, by the way, I like to put my plug in Renology, which I have basically created out of necessity, is about kidney success. and the vicious cycles, there's so many vicious cycles in kidney disease. It's either the thyroid harms kidney or kidney harms thyroid, and you got to step in and make precious cycles. And that's really why we're talking, because you really can. And the other thing that I really like to talk about with kidney in every case, and specifically in this case, is that acidosis is a very, very common thing. So there's that acid-base balance in the body, and there's a very precise balance. Many things change that. And it's a logarithmic thing. So a little tiny change causes a lot of problems. And so it pretty much was that if you can repair the metabolic acidosis in a CKD patient, their thyroid will improve and normalize. I mean, that's dramatic. Why would we ever neglect that? And so it's just an interesting thing, because with acidosis, there's all kinds of things that happen. Growth hormone doesn't work as well, so things don't repair. Steroids, glucocorticoids will go up. Body's worried. It's like something's wrong, do something. And of course, proteins get broken down. And, in my own case, I eat a plant-based diet, which is highly recommended for kidney, because the nitrogen factor and the way the body deals with animal foods is just more troubling to kidney. And I thought, I'm fine. I'm eating this nice alkaline diet. But on the lab test, again, on basic panel, you see a lab that's called CO2. And when the CO2 is elevated, that's better. It becomes more alkaline. When it's low, it's acidic. And mostly in the nephrology community, they talk about a CO2 around 21, 22. Personally, and in my renology mindset, particularly looking at earlier people, I like it closer to 30. Of course, personalized, each patient is unique, but still, that way, what I noticed in my own self, my potassium had been elevated, it normalized. That's a common problem with kidney disease. Uric acid often gets elevated. Mine it normalized. Parathyroid hormone often gets elevated, and that's a whole complicated thing with calcium and vitamin D and phosphorus. It all became normal. And so I look at people's labs a lot, and often it's anywhere from 19 to 23, the CO2. And the thing to understand is that acid, like think of HCl. H is the hydrogen ion, that's the acid, and the kidney has trouble getting rid of it. And so it just accumulates. And so, the dietary aspect is huge. Animal foods and grains make you more acidic. Doesn't mean don't eat them, but don't eat too many of them, because otherwise lose that balance. And many things happen, including Hashimoto's is made much worse. And so, it's like there's no reason to neglect this aspect of our care. It's so easy. I mean, some people take a half a teaspoon of bicarbonate in water daily. Easy. Many of the nephrologists will recommend this. And, anybody listening to this, you really need to have somebody guiding you. Kidney is so fragile, but there are some things that kidney biohackers are people who really want to take care of themselves. And you just have to be wise and careful and do your homework, a lot of it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Kidney is such a fragile organ that, too much of one thing can be dangerous, and too little of a thing can also be dangerous. So it's a very, very a balanced approach. So, I mean, as you're talking about the diet and other things, so why don't we talk about the diet? Because I'm sure everybody would like to know what is the best diet, that they can use for the Hashimoto's and the kidney disease. And I'm sure, there are a lot of overlapping things that people can use. So why don't you share things about that?
Absolutely. Diet is like the primary saving grace in CKD, really. Um, the first thing to think about is protein, because the kidney has difficulty with nitrogen. And so animal foods are harder on kidney. And that doesn't mean never eat them, but I encourage people start learning how to be plant-based. And that doesn't mean I ate broccoli, I'm good. Protein is a harder thing. What do you eat when you don't eat animals for protein? And that's basically, legumes and peas and nuts. I am a soy lover. I have found tofu to be one of the most amazing foods for CKD because the phosphorus is low. Potassium is a little bit of an issue, but it's because it's more alkaline, it tends to be less of a problem. That's another thing, that metabolic acidosis makes potassium more of a problem. And so that's a primary occupation, figure out how to get enough protein. And then too much protein is very popular now and very dangerous for kidney. And, a lot of the nephrologists who are into nutrition are like, oh God, all this, high level. And so there's a measurement, which is grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. We don't use kilograms in America too much, but that's kind of what it is. And the adviso is 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of optimal body weight. That's a little algebra to figure all that out. And then there's things like Chronometer and Self, where they're free apps on websites that you can actually monitor how much you're eating of anything. I mean, this Chronometer is amazing. You can find out how much selenium you had in your diet that day, how much omega-3. It's a pain in the neck to do it, I will guarantee. And so worth it. It's really, I mean, everybody should do this. Every doctor should do it because it's really a pain in the neck, but worth it, with the scale and measuring. And yet, for me, it really turned around my awareness. I mean, do you know how many grams of protein you ate today?
Not really.
None.
Yes, I try to achieve, as you said, the minimal amount around 0.6 grams for my kilograms, so for my optimal weight. So I try to eat between 30 to 40 grams of protein a day. But to
Yeah.
be very frank, I don't count it.
No, I mean, and I stopped because I got enough of a sense of it. Like I
Mhm.
kind of can look at a plate and go, okay, this is good. But the learning curve is really precious. I mean, that is an RX. Work on the diet. The other thing that I'm very strongly in favor of is being organic. And the reason is because we know from population studies that pesticides harm kidney. I mean, farmers who work with these pesticides are dropping in droves in third world countries where they have no monitoring of any of this. It's very serious. A lot of studies came out of Sri Lanka about this, but unfortunately, we're inundated with glyphosate, and glyphosate is dangerous to kidney. It causes leaky gut and leads to that inflammatory endpoint. And one thing I didn't mention is the endpoint of any kind of kidney disease, doesn't matter what, is scarring, fibrosis. And it starts with inflammation, which is basically an inside job. I mean, inflammation, like you cut yourself and you see it's red, that's one form of it. When it's happening inside the body, it's not a good thing. And it leads to pretty much everything we talk about, heart disease and diabetes and brain problems and yada, yada, inflammation. And so learning how to control that in your life is the most self-loving thing you can do. And so, you know, once a kidney scars, it's pretty much end of the line. Before the scarring, you can turn it around. So that's why
Absolutely.
early as well.
Right.
Wait too long and you can't fix it. And so, you know, that aspect, lots of vegetables, but again, you got to know what your potassium and your phosphorus is on your lab, because that will guide diet. Um, Fruit, actually, I found out, I used to tell people, no problem, eat all the fruit you want. Well, fructose actually is not wonderful. Too much fructose will mess up the liver. Liver and kidney have a relationship. And so, you know, it's hard to limit fruit. I live in Hawaii, but I I do, because it's just, you know, food is food. It's like if I'm neurotic about stuff, I'll go draw a picture or, you know, take a walk, because to use food to paddle my emotions is really dangerous for kidney stuff, for all of us. Um, and I'm just noticing something that caught my eye on my notes, which is free T3 can be, and they've done studies, remedied with citrate, another way to alkalinize. And
Wow.
I wanted to bring that out because, you know, early on, magnesium is safe. Later in kidney disease, you got to be careful. It can get too elevated, but early, it's pretty rare that dosing magnesium is going to hurt kidney. And yet when it's low, it hurts everything. And so I decided to find myself some mag citrate powder, which I cook with. I just pour a little on when I'm cooking. It's invisible. When I bake stuff, I put it in. And that citrate is impressive for keeping the acidosis under control. And then I find out it actually helps with thyroid. That's amazing. I mean, that's really amazing, you know, and it was noted T3 is a marker for kidney survival.
That is
You
correct.
know, like, I want to know what mine is.
No, I agree. Magnesium is such a wonderful, like a mineral. All of my patients go on that. It is so
Right,
much needed by the thyroid and so many different things. More than 300 enzymes in our body needs magnesium. And the
right,
good part is that there's so many different forms of magnesium. And you said magnesium citrate, is we knew about that it was good for gut and the thyroid. Now we know that is also good for your kidneys. So one more reason to use that. But a lot of people use over-the-counter magnesium, which is magnesium oxide, which is
right.
like not the best form and actually can be harmful in some people. So definitely, getting the citrate is another reason for your kidneys and other things too.
Yeah. And, you know, thyroid does slow the gut down like kidney can. There's a term called gastroparesis. And it's, you know, the massaging motor action of the gut doesn't work as well. And here's another wonderful job for magnesium, because if you take enough, your bowels move. And with any of these issues, constipation basically facilitates reabsorbing uremic toxins that you didn't want in the first place. You know, and so often we talk about using the bowel as a dialysis, you know, to excrete things that the body isn't successfully doing.
Good. So going back to the diet piece of it, so a couple of things that I want to kind of share, like, talk about more. First of all, alkaline diet, right? So you do support alkaline diet for the kidney disease, or like you
Definitely.
have. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a wonderful researcher at UCSF, Linda Frasetto, whose work basically has been looking at creating an alkaline diet and alkalinizing the body is enormous boon to kidney.
Mhm.
You know, so that's well accepted. But what I'm not seeing is nobody knows how to teach people how to do it.
Exactly. And that's what I
Um,
was coming to next is that, like, because a lot of things that you already shared is a part of the alkaline diet. So I just want to everybody to know about it. But if there is
Yeah.
anything more specific that you want to share about alkaline diet, that will be useful for folks also.
The grain thing is very interesting. Grains, wheat, which I usually suggest people try not eating and see how amazingly well they feel, unfortunately. Other grains, all of them, rice, corn, will cause excessive acidity in the body. And those hydrogen ions need to go somewhere. They need to get out. Well, if you can't get them out, what are you going to do? Eat less of them, put less in. And there's a certain need for an amount of calories. There's 35 kilocalories per kilogram. Less than that, people can have wasting. Well, you don't want to start losing muscle. People will gain fat. They look fine, but if you do a DEXA, you see their muscles and bones both can be deteriorating. Also can happen with thyroid. So again, that marriage of thyroid and kidney really compromised. So animal food and grains. Okay, doc, what do I eat now? And so, what my solution is more ethnic food, really. Many ethnic cultures have plant foods as basis, in ways more than Western diet does. And so, it's a matter of figuring out, how do I get that 30, 40 grams of protein a day? And realize, if you eat white rice, you're getting protein. If you're eating broccoli, you're getting protein. That's where Chronometer comes in. But what kind? And again, I love tempeh and tofu. I think that I know there's major soy hate, and it has to be organic. And still, I'm always like, oh dear, because we've done some unpleasant things in terms of manipulating our food supply, and I don't know what I can do about it except be proactive for myself, and be kind of stubborn and try not to eat anything that I don't trust. So, so in terms of that, like more vegetables, look at your plate. I actually wrote a book on acid-based diet years ago, and then my mother was sick and I never published it. So I know a lot about it even before kidney. And make your plate look like 75% vegetables. Whatever the rest you want to throw in there, that's good. And so if your protein is vegetable, you're in good shape. Some people go purely vegan. Some people go purely vegan for 3 months or 6 months and really bring their numbers down, and then like maybe put a little fish in. Or my own diet, I eat egg whites for breakfast. My lucky dogs get the yolks because I still watch my phosphorus, and egg yolks are pretty high in phosphorus. And I live on an island that has the most gorgeous venison on the planet, and they've overrun the island, and so it's very plentiful. I eat some of it, not as much as my husband, who loves it, and because of the kidney, and because I don't want to risk getting too acidic.
Absolutely. Great. So wonderful. Those were like really great tips and like a lot of good information about the diet that people can use, for both thyroid and kidney disease. It's very similar to like what we use with our clients also. Same
Yeah.
thing again, plant-based diet, with a little bit of meat, like, the fish or the something that you want to add on to it. But thank you so much. So what else, like things that can be helpful? So let's talk about those things. What else can be
Well,
helpful?
remember salt. Salt is everywhere. It is everywhere. You got to basically give up eating packaged food. The other thing some people say is give up eating out. I've gotten sick several times eating out. Nice restaurants, beautiful food. The oil and the salt are not good, and so it's just be aware. It doesn't mean eliminate it. You can make yourself sick without salt. But it's surprising. When you start doing the Chronometer thing, and it starts like, oh my God, there's way too much. So, that's diet. It's like, commit yourself. There's no option. It's like, if you don't love yourself enough, you won't do a kidney diet. And the next one is sleep. Sleep and kidney are huge. Melatonin gets messed up. I mean, sleep abnormalities. I'm not going to go into a lot of the science details about it, but you got to sleep. Get an Oura ring and figure it out and make sure you're getting, 7, 8 solid hours of sleep. It's just not optional. The other thing that isn't optional is exercising, both resistance. I just bought myself some weights that go from 2 pounds to 15.
Oh,
And and I've lost fat, bone, and muscle in the process of this illness. And so, I'm very committed to reclaim. I probably had more fat than I needed. I don't mind that as much as the muscle. But yoga, very important kind of exercise and stress reduction. Walking, even just leg lifts on your bed, something. When I was in the hospital, I was doing leg lifts in the hospital bed. They were like, "What are you doing?" I need my exercise. Stress reduction is enormous. And in fact, my own case, I look back at my history, the antecedents of my case, major stresses. I mean, insane, crazy things. And I thought, okay, I'm tolerating it. I've dealt, I've coped. And I think in retrospect, that was the big hit. The other one, I think, is I had cramps with my periods and took NSAIDs for years. Avoid those. But the stress factor is like, our whole culture is spinning us all out. And to actually take that time out and just be quiet, find things of joy, playing music, singing, everything vagus. I mean, because the effect of kidney disease on the body is it takes the vagus out. It's a sympathetic nervous system overload, too much. And I mean, I'm very aware of it. It's like things come at me, I'm reacting too much. When I'm aware of that and I know it, I can shift out of it. But it's it's annoying. And so anything that you can do, that's why the sleep, intermittent fasting, taking 12 plus hours a day and not eating. That can be while you're sleeping and then some. I don't eat until 11, generally in the morning, and then try to eat in those hours, and the benefits. We know that the vicious cycles end up hypertension and diabetes are big deals with kidney disease, and also obviously with thyroid.
absolutely. Yes. Those are like really like, easy things that, everybody can do, and these are not like tough things that, okay, you need to spend a lot of money for it, or, you need to kind of dedicate for it. You just kind of, these are some life hacks that is good for so many people, for so many diseases. And if you can
I forgot to
safeguard
say
it,
sugar.
what was that?
I forgot to say, don't eat sugar.
Yes.
That's the hard. I mean, it's a crazy hard thing, but that's the hack. I mean, sugar and salt. We're drowning in them, and yet, yes, you can. I did it. I mean, I don't eat sugar anymore. I have to admit, I actually do eat a little tiny piece of chocolate pretty much daily. Yes, there's some organic sugar in it, but I mean, it's only this big. So, and that was after many years, I wouldn't eat any. I mean, and no sweeteners to really change that craving. I'm stressed. Oh, here, baby, have a cookie. It's very dangerous. And so, these are all things we can do. And can you do it overnight? No, that's why I think you should start in stage 2. Start trying to quit eating these things that are bad for you, because by the time this progresses, God willing, it won't, you'll turn it around, but we know it's a progressive illness. And so start early with the ways that can fix it. It's hard to change your life. It's really hard to change diet and stress habits. Reactivities are so innate from childhood experiences. Some people even say intergenerational. So you got to mean it. You got to mean it.
I agree with that. I mean, those are like so great tips. And I also tell my patients the same thing is that do not try to do each and everything from tomorrow. You just plan ahead of time. These are the things that is the ultimate goal that you want to do. But you cannot just start doing them all together tomorrow. You'll fail and then you'll stop doing everything. So maybe start picking up a new habit each and every day or every week. And then, kind of add more new habits to it. Otherwise, you're going to fail miserably and then you're going to do it.
I was talking about a 12-step program, and even do it over a year. Like for a month, focus on what you drink and figure out how much to drink, because most people tend to be kind of dehydrated, she says, and drinks.
Oh, absolutely. I think, like that's one of the things that we all lack, that we don't drink enough water, and especially during the winter months, because our body doesn't give us those cravings, as we do in summers. So absolutely drinking more and more water and keeping a log of it, or keeping like a personal bottle. That is so easy to kind of know how much you're drinking.
And you can get alkaline water. You can put a little lemon or lime in your water, and that's alkalinizing. There's so many ways. It's like, since I had walked into this situation, I call it, my health awareness is so much more attuned. I was scared. I started out having cancer. That got my attention. I was disciplined, but I realized in retrospect, I had plenty to fine tune. I had many improvements I could make. And that's the thing, you love yourself enough. It's like seeing your child. The child's trying. Compliment them. Good job, Robin. You brought your water bottle. And so that could be one month is sleep. 1 month is exercise. 1 month is studying. Have you learned enough about what you need to know? Relationships. I often talk about toxic relationships with kidney disease is an enormous thing that really has to be addressed. Early on, I had a Facebook kidney group with patients, and I was shocked at the lack of support that many family members offered to people. It was heartbreaking to me. Family members wouldn't allow the person to eat the food they needed or stress them out in ways that, we don't need to make each other sick. And so learning to be assertive and self-loving and self-protective is a real big deal. That could take 3 months, or the rest of your life. And so, there are a lot of these things, looking at your exercise for a month, figure out, gee, I didn't really get my goal. Try again, self-monitoring without blame.
Oh, yes. No shame, no blame. Yes. That is very important. Gosh, you have so many good information. You are you're like an encyclopedia about this thing. We can keep going on and on, but I think, we are running out of time over here. So any last, parting words that you have for people over here?
I think be aware. If you're beginning to see some decrease in kidney, just be aware. And in the Hashimoto situation, if you have Hashimoto's, start looking for your kidney stuff, and even just presumptively do kidney protective behaviors. Don't overdo eating too much protein. I talked to some people who are into the carnivore diet. They all have kidney issues, every one of them. So just, and the best thing, self-love, love yourself, be gentle.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, if our audience wants to find you, what is the best resource to get, find you or get more information about you?
I'm kind of hard to find, I have to admit. I'm on Facebook, so I'm findable on Facebook. I don't have anything, I don't have a website. If I had a dedicated geek person to help me, I would do it. Um, yeah, I'm emailable, and I'm willing to share my email as long as people don't expect too much, because sometimes that can be challenging, but I'm happy to give my email out, which is, I will spell the first part of it, DOC, like doctor, and then B as in boy, INAH, docbina at Gmail.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And definitely, we are all looking forward to your book. So I know I am your accountability partner. I'll continue if we do so that we can get that book out, because I am looking forward to reading more about this stuff.
Thank you so much. Yay. Thank you for
Well,
doing this. This is so important.
yes. No, thank you so much for, sharing all this knowledge and information. I really appreciate you finding time for doing this for us. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome.